presence be felt. So shout out to everybody here. We got my dad in the building. He says, Pops, he says, shout out to DDD. He did it. Yes, Dubois did it, Pops. And funny enough, right, before I get to Ray's comment, funny enough, I want to get Pops his flowers. I want to give Pops his just due because he probably doesn't even remember this, but my dad has always been a very high on Daniel Dubois and his potential in boxing. My dad's been high on Daniel Dubois as far back as 2018. And look, my dad said this about Daniel Dubois back in 2018. Have a listen.
And do it.
Absolutely. One fighter I know you like from the heavyweight division is Daniel Dubois.
Oh, I like this.
Why do you like Daniel Dubois so much? What do you see in him? What makes him so
I think
special?
he's got power for a big heavyweight. He's got quickness. I mean, he moves good, both lateral, sideways, everything. But he's got very powerful. He's very dedicated to the game. I think a couple more fights under him, and as he matures as time goes on, he's going to be he's going to make big noise in the heavyweight.
Do you see him as a guy who could be a dominant champion in the future?
I can see that. I don't think he just has one punch. I think he's very skillful for heavyweight, and I really like him.
So he was right. He was right. And Anthony Joshua found out what Pop said from 2018 to be very true. He don't just got one punch. He is very dedicated to the game, and congrats to him. Congrats to Pops. I know Pops didn't pick him at this moment in time to beat Joshua, but still his initial thoughts from 2018, that was the correct assessment, Pops. So shout out to you. You were always high on Dubois stealing, and it's come to pass. So yeah, shout out to you. We got Ray in the building. Shout out to Ray. Shout out to Chris. Good to see you guys. Yes. Pops knows his shit. Side to summarize. Thank you, man. So we're here. And there's a lot to sink our teeth into. So let's get into it. Let's not waste no time. If you're watching the live right now, make sure you smash that like button so this video and this live gets pushed out to as many people as possible. Definitely super chat, all that good stuff. So look, let's get into it, man, because I'll be honest. It is what it is. Like Dubois, he put a beating on Anthony Joshua. Like this was not a regular beating. This was like Crawford Spence. This was, to me, it was damn near like Gotti versus Ward. It was that level of dominance. It was that level of a one-sided ass whooping. Anthony Joshua had no answer for Dubois from the very first punch, from the very first bell. And apart from one moment in the fifth round, because he had a moment in the fifth round where he basically sold out for the knockout. He tried to get a knockout. Things weren't going well for him. So Ben Davison told him, roll the dice, sell out for the knockout. And he tried to do that, and it almost worked. He clipped Dubois with a really, big straight right hand, but then he committed a very cardinal sin in box. He committed a very, very big no-go when it comes to, the kind of punches you throw from a certain distance. Like, so for example, he threw, right before he got knocked out, he threw an uppercut from way out, and he missed. And the worst punch you could possibly miss in boxing is an uppercut from way out in distance, because when that happens, when you throw an uppercut from the outside as a lead punch and you miss, the punch that's very easy to land right down the middle is the counter straight right hand, and that's literally the exact punch that Anthony Joshua got put out with. So, he whoops AJ, and I'll put it to you like this: maybe you guys may agree, maybe you might disagree, but I really think that Daniel Dubois, with that win, along with Filip Hrgovic, along with Jarrell Miller, those three wins, just the progression in wins and competition and the level of fights he's been in, Daniel Dubois has to get some serious consideration for Fighter of the Year. I know the guy that will probably win it if he's victorious in Saudi again is probably Usyk if he beats Fury again. He's probably the lead guy. Maybe the better be a Bivol winner gets it. But I think, I would say Usyk if he wins against Fury in December. The better be a Bivol winner, Daniel Dubois, and Angelo Leo. Those are the four fighters I would say deserve the most consideration for Fighter of the Year. Dubois and Angelo, because of the level of activity they've had and the performances in big fights, and if not Fighter of the Year, at least Daniel Dubois and Angelo as well, they should both get consideration for comeback Fighter of the Year. I mean, it's just been a remarkable journey for Dubois. And I really hope he does get some serious consideration for Fighter of the Year. And not just him for Fighter of the Year, but I also think his trainer, Don Charles, a guy that, let's be real, Don Charles, this is a guy in Don Charles that for years, he's been on the British scene, training fighters for a number of years, but never was blessed with the talent of a fighter like Daniel Dubois. He had guys like Derek Chisora and Tom Little, Frank Buglioni. These guys at British level that were good and solid, but Dubois, I would say, is the first guy from the guys he's had, that I know about, to where he's really, had a chance to work with him and leave his imprint on him, and it's been a match made in heaven. Don Charles, I think, deserves a lot of consideration for Trainer of the Year because in the Hrgovic fight, which broke my heart, it's still sad to talk about for me because I didn't think Dubois beat Hrgovic like that. But he had the right game plan for Hrgovic because Filip Hrgovic, I love Filip Hrgovic. He's a warrior, but Hrgovic is a high level. He's very well schooled in the art of boxing, maybe not so much in the art of fighting. And those are two very different things. You see, Dubois was able to beat Hrgovic because he knew how to use the art of fighting to his advantage, to rough him up, to get on the inside, right? And the same thing paid dividends here with Joshua. It was actually a little bit of both with Joshua. So I just feel like every button that's needed to be pushed in all these big fights with Dubois, Don Charles has pushed him. So he deserves really, probably even more than Dubois. I think his case for Trainer of the Year might even be a little stronger than Daniel Dubois for Fighter of the Year because, again, he's been tasked with some very difficult assignments. Dubois is a fighter that, let's be real, coming into 2024, a lot of people said that Daniel Dubois was soft and Daniel Dubois, lacked mental toughness. So for him to be having this kind of year, it was damn near unforeseen. And I think a lot of it, of course, it's down to Dubois and his mental makeup and his dedication to the sport. But it's also down to Don Charles pushing the right buttons at the right time and really unlocking some things with Daniel Dubois that previously were not there early in his career. So, yeah, I think he should get serious consideration for Fighter of the Year. That's just how I feel. So, yeah, man. Love what I saw from him. Shout out to everybody here. Let me run through a couple more comments before I get to my next talking point. Shout out to my guy, Leo Donald, who says, Daniel Dubois came in fearless. I favored AJ's experience, but knew Daniel Dubois would come out all guns blazing for the first few rounds and try to take AJ's setup, and that's exactly what he did. Yeah, that's exactly what he did. He had a clear gap. He had a clear advantage in quickness, youth, strength. And it was that real quick first step of Dubois. He was able to cover a lot of ground early and often. And I think that really messed with AJ. And then with him being so young and physical, that combination of the quick first step to close the range with that jab, a sledgehammer jab, and then rough him up. Those things really, it didn't bode well for Anthony Joshua. So.